Research Ops and Accessibility by Bree Norton. 10 Years of Alibytes 2022.
My name is Bree Norton and I'm currently the New South Wales Government. I'm also involved in two volunteer communities. Co-chair of AUSA, the Australian Web Accessibility Initiative, which has been around for 20 years now, and I'm also on the Cheese Board of the fast-growing Research Ops community. Talk is about the importance of accessibility in relation to research operations. First, I would like to acknowledge the Ngunnawal people, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I am presenting from. Pay respects to the elders of the Ngunnawal Nation, both past and present. I extend this respect to all Aboriginal and or Torres Strait Islander peoples today. If you haven't heard, there's a lot of talk about the need to bring accessibility in earlier into the process. Chip left, or baking in accessibility, like you would for blueberries in a blueberry muffin. And you can't get much earlier than discovery. But that does change the focus slightly to not just understanding the tech, or WCAG, lines, but also building the right relationships with the community of users you wish to co-collaborate with on your research. The mission for Research Ops is to help researchers do their best work. They're understanding where accessibility and inclusive design fits in the resources and support provided by REOPS is just as important. So REOPS has a methodology around 8 pillars. It covers a variety of logistics and topics to support researchers. So the first one we have here is around environment. So in the accessibility space, you'd want to understand the level of maturity of the organisation for accessibility and research operations. What education and training is needed. The scope, templates and guidelines. Set them up to be accessible for staff and participants right from the beginning. When you're looking at people, bringing in the experts when you need them, the community of practice. Find out who in your organisation is already doing accessibility and get them involved early on. Organisational context. Embed early preparation with research with diverse users, and give yourself some time and budget to do it properly. Recruitment and admin. Check the processes and tools are accessible for recruiting diverse range of users. How to reach and prepare for people who use assistive tech. Think about how you're going to do that through your recruitment companies. How you will keep vulnerable people safe and provide accommodations. All of this is really important for when you're going through that recruitment phase and actually reaching out to the right people for your research. Data and knowledge management. Be aware of data capture, storage and privacy. The Research Ops community has developed a data governance policy and a data agreement that is open source for you to use with your research activities. Governance. Understand laws and be sensitive to users' needs. Develop a process to manage consent. And again, the Research Ops community has developed a consent form builder that you can actually utilise in this space. Tools and infrastructure. Check research tools and repositories are accessible and ask the vendors if they have an accessibility compliance statement or a VPAT that they can share with you. By understanding these 8 pillars, we can draw together what is important for both researchers and research ops specialists. Recently, I've co-facilitated a pilot workshop with Iris Williams, a user researcher, and Scott Grimley, an expert user of assistive tech, specifically using JAWS, and some volunteers from the research ops community. We discussed some tips and guidance on how to bring accessibility and inclusive design aspects into the discovery phase, and how to prepare research activities with people who use assistive or adaptive technologies. We asked Scott for some of his top tips to consider when you're doing research with diverse users. And I'm going to share back with you the recording of what he said.
Research the disabilities you're going to be working with. And by that, I don't mean research the conditions, I mean research the community. So look at some of the service providers, look at some of the charities that assist them and how they provide them. Look at some of the resources they provide to assist you to interact with people. So with Guide Dogs Australia, they have a list of do's and don'ts with guide dogs. With Aspect, one of the autism groups here in Australia, they have a list of do's and don'ts for people with autism, how to talk to people, how to set up a room, that sort of thing. With the Australian, Better Hearing Australia, they have a way of setting up a room with a hearing loop, and Auslan and talk interpreters, Auslan sign language for international people. It's more in research in the community, research the software and assistive tools that they use, so you have some understanding of when they're talking to you about things like JAWS, hearing loops, T cells, infrared cells, prosthetics. There's all this shorthand for them, and some of you will be sitting there going, what do they mean by blades? What do they mean by GD? A blade is an artificial limb. A GD is a guide dog. But we often just call them GDTs, guide dog team. So it's a matter of just researching the sort of aids that are used and how they're referred to by the community. Probably also, and this is more a tip, avoid simulation to understand what a person's disability is. So don't go and spend a day in a wheelchair to try and understand how a person in a wheelchair lives, because you won't. You'll just understand how hard it is in a medical wheelchair that you've hired from a medical place or a chemist or a pharmacy, and find out just how hard it is to get around in a wheelchair. But your chair is a medical wheelchair. But as mentioned before, there are workarounds with assisted software. There's workarounds with wheelchairs. There's workarounds with crutches. You won't know them, and the community does. So don't go and do simulation training or simulation sessions to try and understand the people that you're going to be interviewing or researching with. Stay away from that one. Probably do a bit of reading up on some of the papers that are out there about general topics. As I mentioned before, I did a research assessment paper recently on tertiary education qualifications for the blind. That's quite an eye-opener. Some of the long-held beliefs for employment for blind and vision impaired. For 40 years, there's been a claim of 70% unemployment for blind and vision impaired in America. It's not that high. It's really not that high at all. In Australia, there was a claim of a 90% unemployment rate for blind and vision impaired, and it's actually 43%. In America, it's 54%. So the long-held beliefs in a disability and the stigmas and the myths behind it, you might want to research that. So that way you can understand that they're a myth and you don't put your foot in it. It's always best to ask the question, how can we work with you so that your assistive tech allows you to make this more comfortable for you? Ask the question. There's no harm in asking the question. That will always be the best thing to ask, because people will appreciate it a lot more than just assuming that, oh, I've sent you a Word doc, it should be accessible. We often hear that. I've sent you this doc, it should be accessible, it worked for me. Ask the question, what do you need for your software? What software are you using? And what's the best way I can present it to you so your software can access it?
Thank you, everyone, for listening today. Got any questions about research ops? Please researchops.com Slack channel and join discussions that are on there. If you are interested in AussieWay and becoming a member, please go to aussieway.org. If you'd like to help out with either of these, reach out and let me know. And especially if you'd like to be involved in research operations and accessibility. Thank you very much. And thank you for AliBytes for having me.
Celebrating 10 years, AliBytes 2022.